You're live.
Hi, welcome to the Friday night edition of Progressive Washington. My name is Amber King, your host. Joining me tonight is Oz, the man behind the studio. Live from Washington State, we just wanted to give you some of the brief updates happening. It's been a busy, eventful week, as you can imagine, and we thought we might want to just discuss some of the hot button topics. One of the first topics I wanted to discuss was our lovely Secretary of State, Kim Wyman, announcing on a radio show that she would not be voting in the March 10th primary vote. As many of you know, you've probably received your ballots in the mail. They are due by March 10th. We are encouraging anybody who is voting after March 8th to drop them off in the drop box at your local polling place. But they are self-paid stamped envelope. You can return it anytime. And of course, we are hoping for a great voter turnout in support of our progressive candidates. So, what are your thoughts, Oz, on our lovely Secretary of State and this kind of voting debacle as we've shifted from the caucus to a primary hybrid
Now, I
vote?
should know this straight out. Kim Wyman, she is a Republican, is she not?
That is correct.
Okay, I'm following so many different things and so many names. It's hard to keep up with that. But yeah, I expect that in a blue state, voter suppression, Kim Wyman, Republican. Yeah, I'm thinking that's about it. And I was reading today. We talked a little bit earlier about there's already 26,000 ballots that are not valid because you didn't put your party preference on that. Do you want to go in and explain that a little bit more, Amber?
Yeah, certainly. So, because it is a presidential primary, we in Washington state do not have voter party affiliation. So, you do not have to be registered with the party traditionally to vote. And there's that information is not on your ballots. However, in a presidential primary, because we've moved from our caucuses to this first step is a primary vote, each candidate has different rules, and then you have to make a party declaration basically saying that you won't participate in both dishonestly. So, part of that is each party wrote the language on the back. It does have some very strong wording, up into a $25,000 fine or jail time, as it reads, which I'm sure is scaring the crap out of people. And that's why we've been trying to do our due diligence and get that information out to the people to make them aware. And we knew people that traditionally consider themselves independent of politics were going to have an issue with this. So it's very disheartening this early on in the primary to hear that kind of a number being rejected. It's also, they're saying that their phones are ringing off the hook. And what happens is that information is going to be made public to the parties. Part of that is so that as we move forward in this process and go on to caucusing for our representatives to see who goes on to the national conventions, we have to have some test of who is credentialed. So that just ensures that you're not crossing party lines, voting for one, and then hopping in and trying to caucus for somebody else. There has to be some cost and measures. In other states, you're registered with the party, it's known, it's affiliated, and you only get those choices on the ballot, which is even worse, in my opinion. But we're not used to this in Washington. We're not used to this hybrid system. And so it's very difficult to have it well understood without upsetting people, let alone having them understand how important it is to check that box. I also like to note that this is not the first time that Wyman's been accused of voter suppression. In 2016, the Spanish voter guides were mistranslated, and there was a large kerfuffle of, you know, what is happening with our representation between different you know early language speakers. So it's really just another thing for her to go on record, basically saying she's not going to vote is pretty ridiculous to me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's pretty right on. It's going all up and down as we're getting into the election process. We're not alone as far as voter suppression. I know that California is having a hell of a time, particularly in LA County, with the issue of provisional ballots, which is nuts. If you don't have two pieces of ID that identically match with your where you live and things like that, they are going to stamp it as a provisional ballot. And I want to point out that in California, in the 2016 cycle, was it, Amber, that 600,000 of those provisional ballots weren't even counted. So,
Yes.
so I understand the concerns, and we're not alone with these types of voter suppression out there, and it's a shame that we can't even get our vote counted in many cases. But I think that this election cycle, we have a chance to make a difference by supporting as the Sanders campaign, who is going to get in there and hopefully try and clean some of this up and actually make it easier instead of harder for people to vote. The thing that I get people talking about, well, what's he going to do when he gets in there? And that's one of the things that I believe a Sanders administration would focus on, is making it easier to vote, making sure the vote's secure. And what do you have to say as far as that? Do you agree with that?
Oh, wholeheartedly. I think, especially due to the adversity that Bernie has faced year after year, election after election, even, as far as Senate races, that he is very well in tune to some of the nonsense that happens, and the attacks and the disinformation. It's well known. If anybody has paid attention to the Cambridge Analytica piece, or the fear of Russians coming in on either side, anybody can buy Facebook ads, and our country allows that, and you can watch the grilling of Mark Zuckerberg and know that they're not really understanding enough to even be able to do anything about it. So, let alone voter suppression where people are being, repealed and kicked off the books. It's widespread, and we have a lot of different factors that keep it difficult for people to vote across this country. And I think he is uniquely posed to be able to bring ethical people in with integrity that care about getting all people's voices heard and counted. And that is a big picture piece of why a lot of the elite are so afraid of him, because they've worked for the last 40 years on voter suppression and, having a large felony population.
So that's one of the many, many issues that are on the line with getting Bernie Sanders elected in this cycle. And that's people out there working for the Sanders campaign, like us, know that. But it's just one of the many issues that is going to help bring our democracy back in line with what it's supposed to be, in my opinion. I know that that's a shared opinion with many people. So once again, you don't let these things get you down, and don't get into the idea of your vote doesn't count, because it does count. I mean, this time around, if we can't make a difference, then, I might start entertaining some of that other stuff. But as far as our time to really make an election count, and I know many of you heard this before, oh, this is the most important election of a lifetime. Well, this one is, because we've got the climate catastrophe on one hand, we've got wars out of control on the other hand. What could be more important than making this the moniker election of our time? And frankly, I'd like to have another FDR type of presidency here, where it is a new deal for a new generation, and really try and do things that take that power away from the wealthiest, because of such income disparity in this day and age. That energizes me to, and I'm one of the last of the boomers. So, that's where I'm at. And for me, it's going to be my legacy that I worked on this campaign to really try and get democracy back where it belongs.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And, it's such an age of disinformation and, just straight up tricks and lies happening all the time. And you hear that speak with, oh, the Bernie bros are after me. And, it's like, no, we're just coming after the truth, and we're going to keep pushing the truth because it's an age of disinformation. And like I was listening earlier this week to the Google whistleblower talking about the age of disinformation that is happening on our web platforms, and dumbing down and hiding videos on, and basically pulling out algorithms with code words, and being able to immediately tamper down any kind of news that they choose to not be as truthful, which really just goes straight to their agenda. And if you start looking at a lot of their the cross references between different campaigns, you start looking at the amount of Clinton Foundation employees that were magically hired by Google into their special projects teams. Like, none of this is surprising at me to all, and when I talk to people on the right, and I don't mean, most of us are still in the 99%. They talk a lot about freedom, and to me, freedom really has to do with information and the ability to be able to have frank conversations, have independent news that's not afraid of being turned in for whistleblowers, or being tampered down, or getting Assange free, getting Snowden able to live his life, for being able, for the Chelsea Mannings, all these types of things, the Brian Whitfield. There's so many situations where we don't really realize what's going on, and it's very disingenuous the way it's played out in the media, which is obviously very tightly controlled, but also just the internet in general is also tightly controlled, and that's a problem. So, I see you have the clip pulled up that has been one of my favorite clips this week, which is showing, again, a lot of the same Obama legacy, David Plouffe era. Their campaign people have been working really tightly with Mayor Pete's campaign, and it's very apparent in the style and way that they use words against us in a, like, what brought us so much hope, I see, and then left us kind of in the dirt, which I'd be afraid would happen again should he get any delegates.
Well, yeah, and this is something that I want to go back to where when Biden was running. I think it was back in the 80s. He got nailed for plagiarism, and he had to mea culpa on that, and he bowed out of the campaign specifically for plagiarism. And you've put this, you gave me this clip. I did run this the other day on Progressive Massachusetts, and everybody got a kick out of it. Those of you who haven't seen it, this is a real treat, and this is one of the tactics that the establishment uses. And it's old school is what it is, but without going too far. Listen to Mayor Pete's originality and compared to President Obama's speeches from years past. We're talking what? These were back when he was running in 2008, Amber?
Yes.
Yeah, well, let me fire this up, and I'll run it through a couple of times so everybody can appreciate the effort and the body language and the hand gestures and how he fixed the eyes here. Here we go. Check this out. Let me know if you can hear it okay. We had a little sound disparity before, so.
The way we do every other election.
Nope, that won't do it. Let me fix that here. 1 second. This is really important. I want to get this right. Come.
And it is kind of hard to hear, I must say, too, just because you're listening to two people speak over each other. So that's why it is great to play it a few times.
Let me see if I can get this going again. I don't want to mess that up. Oh, okay.
By giving it to the person who got the most votes. Just a thought. Brings us together.
This country was built. It is a movement reaching into church basements and barbershops, into universities and with our kids. And if we can light up the neighborhood, then we can light up the city. Shines as a beacon around the world once more.
And this is our chance to answer that call.
The way we do every other election, by giving it to the person who got the most votes. Just a thought. Brings us together.
This country was built. It is a movement reaching into church basements and barbershops, into universities and with our kids. And if we can light up the neighborhood, then we can light up the city.
It's pretty incredible. incredible.
Yeah, that was priceless. I gotta say, So does Mayor Pete get in trouble for little plagiarism there, or is it just going to skip on by?
Oh, I think it'll skip on by. I mean, honestly, they could probably go back and say the same people wrote them. So is that plagiarism or is that good politics in 2020? I also recently heard an article about some of the presidential, tell-all books that have been written, in books by presidents. And they were saying that one of the most famous books written by JFK was entirely not written by him. It was written by his speechwriter. So, this kind of thing is happening. And that, in turn, sadly, I think is part of what we consider in America as a good politician, is somebody who can have this type of narrative and dialogue that is really just unsubstantiative and not genuous in the end.
What happens when politicians absolutely lie and the so-called fact checkers don't do their job, or coming out of the gate? What do you say to that, Amber? Because we've got another little clip courtesy of the National Rational here that I'd like to play, the Rational National, about Elizabeth Warren taking a question. You want to listen to it and then comment?
Sure, that sounds great.
Let's see what this is. You haven't seen this yet, right?
No, I haven't.
Okay, let's give this a whirl, see how it works out.
Chamala, an account manager for a software company here in Charleston. He is currently supporting Senator Sanders. Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Hey now, Senator Warren. Welcome to Charleston.
Thank you.
During the Nevada debate, you and every other candidate on the stage, except for Bernie, hello somebody, indicated that the candidate with the plurality of delegates should not necessarily be the nominee.
Uh-huh.
This essentially means the will of the voters could be denied by the superdelegates and the DNC, which is basically undemocratic. And in my opinion, is a bunch of baba booey, to put it politely. Can you explain why the will of the voters should not matter if no candidate reaches a majority of delegates?
So you do know that was Bernie's position in 2016?
Not necessarily, no.
Yeah.
He won 22 states, so he went to the convention
that was
for his
Bernie's
voters.
position in 2016, that it should not go to the person who had a plurality.
Yeah.
So, and remember, his last play was to superdelegates. So the way I see this is you write the rules before you know where everybody stands, and then you stick with those rules. So for me, Bernie had a big hand in writing these rules. I didn't write them. But Bernie did when they were putting together the 2016 platform for the Democratic Convention. Those are the rules that he wanted to write and others wanted to write. Everybody got in the race thinking that was the set of rules. I don't see how come you get to change it just because he now thinks there's an advantage to him for doing that.
And we have a great big applause line that was just like, oh, yeah, and Warren killed it on that one. And I would say what she killed was the truth, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I'm surprised she was so quick off the cuff on that, but, guess maybe I shouldn't be by now. And honestly, I by the end of the convention, I wasn't paying a ton of attention to politics. I was so disgusted. So Baba Booey comes to mind. I think that's a new Southern term I will keep near and dear to my heart going forward.
Well, what we have here now, we can set the record straight here, because we have a follow-up clip that was it was done by I can't accredit the person, but I will try. But just listen to this, and this is taken from comments that Warren's made since 2016 about the very subject. So here we go.
And why the will of the voters should not matter if no candidate reaches a majority of delegates?
So you do know that was Bernie's position in 2016, that it should not go to the person who had a plurality. His last play was to superdelegates.
A superdelegate is thinking about going to you, but Hillary Clinton won their state. Presumably they should stick with Hillary Clinton.
Look, there's not a rigid rule, but I think, if you win, Hillary Clinton wins with 53% of the vote. She won Illinois by a point or two, sure. But when a candidate, whether it's Clinton or myself, she demolished us in Mississippi, I think the superdelegates should support her in Mississippi. But when in states like Colorado and in many other states, Utah, etc., we win the overwhelming majority of vote, I think those superdelegates should go with their state.
You've made a distinction between superdelegates from states you've won, that you think those superdelegates should go for you. So will you not try to convince any superdelegate who comes from a state that you did not win in the primary and caucus process?
Right. Look, this is what I think. If I win, or Hillary Clinton, if that is your point, Hillary Clinton won Mississippi by a huge vote. Should I convince superdelegates there to vote for me when she won that state overwhelmingly? No, I shouldn't. But we won states, like Washington, Alaska, Hawaii, New Hampshire, in landslide victories. And I do believe that the superdelegates, whether it's, Clinton's or mine, states that we won, superdelegates in states where a candidate wins a landslide victory should listen to the people in those states.
I'm a superdelegate, and I don't believe in superdelegates. I don't think that superdelegates ought to sway the election. Bernie had a big hand in writing these rules. I didn't write them.
So we're here at the DNC Unity Reform Commission. This is a panel of 21 people. The chair is a Hillary Clinton person, the vice chair is a Bernie Sanders person, the head of Our Revolution, and then there is 9 Hillary Clinton people, 7 Bernie Sanders people, and 3 DNC chair appointees.
Those are the rules that he wanted to write and others wanted to write. Everybody got in the race thinking that was the set of rules. I don't see how come you get to change it just because he now thinks there's an advantage to him. In most democracies around the world, the person who gets the most votes wins. How about we make America that kind of democracy?
Yeah, I got hats off to David Dole over at the Rational National. He did a great piece on that yesterday, and I just stole it from him, but I am crediting him there for that. But it just shows you what kind of negative politicking goes on, and Warren being supposedly progressive. I don't see progressive leaders twisting the truth or realities to fit their agenda personally. A real progressive lives by the truth, and I see that second follow-up is how Bernie did. What do you think?
Yeah, and that's what sets Bernie apart from all of them, and I think most of the American people really see that. There's a thing called integrity. And that shines through no matter what he does. And that's why he gets, painted as this old grumpy, curmudgeon. And, they put all these mean faces on him because he just, he doesn't take enough soft questions and he's not friendly. And he's just like, I don't care. I don't care if it's your birthday. I'm not, going to go tell you happy anniversary. I'm not going to remember that kind of stuff. Like, he's just very plain, simple, to the point, and gets to work. And I think that's the beauty of it, and that's what we need right now. We have so much BS happening on all levels of life that how refreshing would it be to just have somebody who's like to the point, honest, and doesn't care about the bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Bernie on healthcare is the most trusted candidate. And I don't think it's just healthcare. I think, he kind of speaks for himself in that last clip. The guy is straight up about, where he was on the superdelegates back in 2016, and that hasn't changed. And I want to remind everybody, we all know, that the Unity Commission was stacked with establishment insiders, Clinton people, and they fought tooth and nail to keep the superdelegates in the second round of voting if it came to a brokered convention. And superdelegate is the antithesis, in my opinion, to democracy, because a superdelegate has the weighted power of 10,000 individual voters. I mean, the math is really simple. You take the number of voters in the state and the number of delegates that state's allotted, and you just break it down on how much power they have, where these uncommitted superdelegates can vote for whoever they want. So they're not accountable to anybody like the voters, like the delegates of that state. And many, I want to remind everybody, our state party chair is a superdelegate. She was elected by a tight group of people at the state party. There are superdelegates that at the DNC that are appointed by the chair. So, when I get this stuff from establishment members or insiders with the Democratic Party saying, well, those are all elected, all the superdelegates are elected, elections count. Well, they're not really. Some of them are appointed. Some of them are lobbyists for big pharma and the fossil fuel industry and big banking and everything else. So they're kidding you. They're trying to kid you, but we're wise to that now. So, but anyway, I do appreciate your feedback on that. Do you want to finish that up and go on to the next topic?
Yeah, certainly. You brought up healthcare, and I just thought I would go back to reminding everyone that Senator Warren's plan kicks in when you're 50 years old in her third year of office. And that is all her healthcare plan covers. And then she look at the rest of it then. So,
wow.
I mean, not disingenuous, plans. It doesn't, it just gets worse as you go down the candidates.
Yeah,
it never gets better.
Yeah, it doesn't at all. People, devil's advocate, well, Bernie's going to need the Senate and the House to get these things passed. Bernie needs us. He needs the people in the streets, the same ones that are working their butts off to get him elected, to, keep on going after we do get him elected, hopefully, hope to God, and to push this, getting a Medicare for All system in. And he said, and tell me if I'm wrong, didn't he say that he would actively go to the states where the representatives or the senators are and campaign on either you support a Medicare for all or we're going to, primary you or put pressure on you by your base in your state? And I believe in that 100%. So.
Well, and you bring up a couple different points on that, is that we all need to rise up and run and look for opportunity where regular people, working people, can get involved. And, that is a sacrifice, but that is something that a lot of us have not done. We didn't really grow up with that. And we've lost a lot of the working class people being involved in politics and having a voice. And that's why, to me, doing this work is so important. Trying to change the status quo of what these parties means is very, very important. But also, Washington State has an opportunity to pass its own universal health care plan with whole Washington.
Oh,
and
yeah.
really, really need to get this going, because that is a safe haven. Much like other things, having states have better rights than the federal government is a safe haven should the federal inactions not happen in time or be taken away at a lesser time. We would be able to put those in place and save $600 million in the first year. So if that's one state and you're curious of how these plans pay for themselves, or we're just asking for a bunch of free stuff. No, this is really basic cost of living, everyday things that everybody deserves who works and lives in America, that every other country has, without a doubt. And, you can go back to watching Sicko from, I don't even know, can't remember what year Michael Moore put that out. People in other countries have no idea that we don't have mandatory paid leave. They have no idea that we don't have a mandatory set of vacation, or that healthcare is not paid, and that people are paying, $2,000 to $5,000 a year in deductibles, another 10 to 25 to 40% in co-pays, let alone co-insurance and premiums. Whether it's your employer or us, we're all paying for that. And that's what we saw with the, Healthcare Affordable Care Act that we ended up with, which, by the way, I got a lovely piece of mail today from Michael Bloomberg telling me he was going to save Obamacare.
Oh, boy. Joy. You mean save the insurance industry is what he's talking about, right?
Yeah. Save administrative and CEO profits is what that is. And it's only when we have a single payer healthcare that we will have the freedom to be able to choose the type of care we want, choose the doctors, and have medications, if we so choose them, at an affordable rate. And without that, without forcing everybody into one plan, we lose all negotiating power. We lose all ability to put a cap and limit on this nonsense, because it's not a mandate of care, it's a mandate of coverage. And that's really the important distinction. I do a lot of medical billing. I see the best and I see the worst plans out there, and they're all raking in money and denying care and trickling down your ability to access that care every single year.
So would you say the efforts of whole Washington and, you know, the members trying to get that for Washington State, and I want to shout out to the Red Berets as being a big part of that, would you say that if Washington were to adapt, or should I say when Washington adopts the whole Washington plan, isn't that directly helping Bernie with a Medicare for all plan nationally? Don't you think all the states, do you think that if all the states tried to do what whole Washington's doing in this state, it would help the whole cause of Medicare for all?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It would be a huge thing. And, you know, Washington is leading the nation in a lot of these things. The $15 an hour, which is absolutely about half of what you need to survive in the city of Seattle now. You know, so we're a good 15 years behind on that. And, you know, without having rent control doesn't really do much for anybody. We still need 8 jobs just to have a studio if we can find it, and you have good enough credit to have it. Also meaning you don't have student loan debt or, you know, other predatory lenders after you. So it's, you know, it's a lot of these things, and they've just built up. The greed in this country has built up so high that we have to put these things in place, because it's not stopping. They're not going to magically say, oh, we'll cut this back and we'll give you a little bit here, or we'll give you a little bit there. It's got to be all for nothing right now, because there's no way to wrangle in the disparity in wealth in this country.
So Pramila Jayapal, she's spearheading the Medicare for All, and from what I've read, and I understand from other people, that plan is just a terrific plan. It's in some ways it's better than the plan that Bernie's put forth. Is that correct, or am I incorrect?
I believe it's a companion bill, so that they would both go through House and Senate and be enacted into law, which is what we're trying to do here in Washington State as well. We do have a sponsor in the Senate, and we are actively trying to find a champion in the House. We have co-sponsors ready to go for it, but we do not have a House sponsor yet. And in the lieu of that, we are pushing for not only donations to wholewashington.org, but our revolution is going to be phone banking. Not only get out your vote, turn in your primary ballot, but also we're going to be ramping up the initiative process and gathering signatures. We're trying to collect over 200,000 signatures in Washington State. I believe like 270 is the goal, just so you have that margin of error. This to date has been the most successful signature gathering efforts since they increased the requirements of that. So it's really exciting. We hope you can donate. We hope you can go online to the website, wholewashington.org. You can sign up to volunteer. You can donate. You can put in your income and your family size and see how much it would cost you. It would see how much it would cost your business if you're an employer. You could read the entire details of the tax structure and how it's set up and the cost savings to Washington State. And so, you know, going to lobby in Washington, and when you hear lawmakers say, oh, well, yeah, if we could afford to fund education, and if we could afford, you know, and I'm like, I know how you can do that by passing Whole Washington. You can fund everything that you're asking for.
Your business idea needs the website.
So I see you have something else queued up for us.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the comments here. I want to give a shout out. We've got a pretty good crowd here tonight. We got 23 watching us, and Jeffrey Denton, Franklin Walbrown, you know that guy. We've got Vegematic. Hey, Veg, I see you around quite a bit. Vegematic says, no Canadian would ever trade our health care. I'm retired and completely covered, don't pay premiums at all. It has been deducted from my paycheck at a very reasonable rate. Retirees pay nothing, so there is no copay. Where our retirees, until they get to Medicare, they've got to have that bridge insurance until that time if they retire before Medicare time. We've got Patricia Shepard out there. We've got Remembrance, Rug Guy. Let me see who else we got in here. I don't want to miss anybody, but I do want to give them a shout out. We got Brent McKinney. We got Patricia. We can't f around this time with the white noise machines, and they dismantle democracy and snatch away Bernie's nomination. I think Patricia is referring to the that shit show of a convention. Quarter, I said shit again, 50 cents, but last time. So looking at the convention coming up, do you think we're going to have some trouble going into that as it looks now, or is it going to be, will we know more after Super Tuesday, of course?
Yeah, I think we'll know more, in the next 13 days. I think that this is going to be the telltale sign of if they've been able to be successful in wrangling and buy out things. But if it's, I've also seen some really encouraging things this week, some very, I would say, stalwart neoliberals just saying, a brokered convention would be really bad going up against Donald Trump. And that's great to hear. It's, that is the reality of the situation. And it really just depends on how big of a mess they want to make it. I know that Milwaukee is hiring extra police force. I know that lots of people are planning on going just as spectators and outside observers. I'm really looking forward to some UN observers getting involved in the US election cycle right now, because I think that is critical for world peace going forward, and probably a lot of their, constituents in the people who have joined the UN. So I think it's really important that, and we not only look at what I'm calling Chaiwaki, because there will actually be more delegates housed in Chicago than in the state of Milwaukee or in the town of Milwaukee, that we are able to converse, we were able to coalesce. Washington State was very bold last time, and they were brave and they were amazing. And I couldn't have been more proud watching them in 2016. And they shut the lights out on them. They turned up the white noise. And, we saw a little bit of that in the tiny little preview in the debate on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
$2,000 tickets.
Is that what you call that, Tuesday? That was a debate?
All right, large argument.
Large argument, uncontrolled argument. Yeah.
Yes. Hopefully they'll find some better moderators to be able to control the nonsense. And we, I think Bernie did great. I think we all knew they were going to go out guns blazing on him because he's the front runner. But none of them made a case for themselves.
Oh, not at all. Suzanne Murphy, she is new. She's brand new. It's Progressive Massachusetts. And we did a show after the debate, and we really kind of scooped the other social media talkers on a few of the salient points coming from that. But it was definitely an out of control debate. And Bloomberg obviously had the best crowd in there because tickets range from, $1,250 up to $3,200. And, the $1,700 tickets were in the in the loft up there, and then the floor tickets were exponentially more. But, when you've got a bunch of rich people in there and you've got Bernie talking about how the billionaire is buying the election and there's a lot of booze, I kind of wear that as a Medal of Honor, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I thought it was hilarious. It was just very scripted and played to a point. How do people not see that? My small daughter sees that with Bloomberg ads.
And absolutely. And he even admitted in the election, he goes, yeah, all the last cycle with 40 Democrats that I bought, that Freudian slip, that was all there. But I think the most disturbing thing, other than it being a total disaster as far as, anything really cogent and substantive, was the way they let Pete Buttigieg monologue right over so many times. It made him look foolish, and I think it basically made him look worse than he already does in my eyes. I don't have a lot of love for that guy either. So, again, yeah, there were some things in that debate, but, you know, those don't excite me so much. But I would say the people who won that debate, or the person who won that debate, were the people who didn't watch it. We watch it because we're engaged. But what I do want to shout out before I forget again, I was going to say this earlier. You were at the Tacoma Dome for the Bernie rally, and you guys just really blew the top off of that place. Our Revolution Bernie-crats and the other groups. But Jamie Margolin was 0 Hour. That's what made me think of that. She is trying to get people to go to Milwaukee, take their vacations, and this is something that we've talked about in multiple groups. If you really want to get in there and be that patriot, you know, that patriotic thing, go to Milwaukee, July 13th through 16th, and let's surround that place and let them know it's the people taking their government back.
Yeah, and that's a really important part in this participatory situation, you know. And one of the things, you know, I'm hoping that Mr. Senator Sanders will be returning to Seattle so we can show him the love, or neighboring towns. But that was such a magical evening. And one of the things, when our delegates in 2016 had the lights turned out on them, they turned around and showed up the next day in these glow in the dark, bright yellow shirts, or bright green shirts.
Yeah.
And all of our 2016 delegates that came to the Tacoma Dome also wore those shirts, and he was visibly
yeah, he was moved by that. I saw him. He kind of had to catch himself a little bit, and Jane was kind of patting him on the back at that time. I even got a little teary-eyed. You know, that was really nice. You know, there was, you know, that was a nice shout out for Washington State, and our friends in Oregon and California, everybody who's doing things like that. Be prepared, you know, get your shirt, make your statement, you know. That was just terrific. Now, I heard that we had a religious figure at the Tacoma Dome too. Wasn't Jesus there taking pictures with people?
He was sandals and all. I had a few conversations with him. He was a great guy. It was just a ton of fun. The mood was amazing. There was a ton of children there bouncing around and super excited.
Our friend Larry Taylor from Progressive Oregon was there. You got to meet him in the flesh for the first time.
I did. That was lovely. And you know, the biggest part about this is, you know, we're a family. You know, this family's only been going for, you know, half a decade or so, but it is mighty and strong. And I really don't think they were expecting that to be, but that is what it has become. You know, and we're open arms to anybody who wants to join us and be part of this movement. There's nothing like it. And that's, I think, even the more beautiful thing that comes out of all of this is when our communities become stronger and tighter. And we're able to stand up to, you know, whether it's Nestle trying to take water out of the Nisqually, or, you know, trying to fight fracking and, you know, oil trains down on the South Coast, or, you know, different port projects happening in Tacoma and Longview. You know, we really come together when we need to. And that is something that's not going anywhere, regardless of this election, regardless of the issues. We are a growing family of progressive friends and supporters of Bernie Sanders, and it's only growing stronger and stronger. I've met so many amazing volunteers. I've spent hours on the phone talking to people all over the country, and even calling just for Washington. I've talked to people. There's a ton of medical refugees hiding across the border in Canada that can't come back to the U.S. because of our healthcare system.
Oh my gosh! Wow, that's scary.
Scary. And part of this leads me to, you know, some of the things that I see happening. I see this week stock markets dropping 3,500 points. I see our inability to manufacture goods possibly screeching to a halt.
By the way, how is your portfolio doing there, Lovey? Do you have a good portfolio? Did you lose a lot this week?
I do not have a portfolio at all. But I did receive a letter from the Department of Education 5 years after I filed a complaint against my student loans that I'm now involved in a lawsuit with Betsy DeVos.
Oh,
so
good
it took
for
them 5 years to
you.
send me a letter. So
Right on. I'm
that's
glad
my
they got back
portfolio.
to you.
Yeah, I won't have to make my 4-hour phone call this year just to try and get somebody on the phone to not get an answer. So that's my current portfolio. So, honestly, it doesn't hurt my feelings at all. But, hey, Procter & Gamble says that we could be running out of 3,500 products in the next 2 months. So stock up on your toothpaste, I guess, is what that means. Although
Does that come from China too?
Almost all manufacturing comes from China because we've outsourced everything.
Everything. And I know that the Natural Progressive, Christine, has been on, Progressive Oregon, and we've had her on Progressive Washington, and she has her own show. She took a couple of shots at Home Depot, and just empty shelves where the antibacterial masks are that you would wear outside or in public. And other than Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing, the 3M company, there's no way, since all the outsourcing of products specific like that, you're going to get them, because the rest of them are manufactured in China. And I'd even venture to say maybe that Minnesota Mining has outsourced some of their product line to China as well. So, not only has the coronavirus has had a catastrophic effect on tourism, on ship and trade, on entertainment. What else? It's everything. When you have something like that, I hear South Korea is quarantined now. Can you expand on any of that? I know coronavirus is one of the topics you wanted to touch on tonight.
Yeah, and I see this as not only a fear to control the people kind of scenario. Worst case scenario, Bill Gates ran a complete study on world pandemic 6 months ago, magically, how many it would take and of what to have this happen, let alone that there was the lovely professor at Harvard in charge of the biologics lab arrested for collusion with the University of Wuhan.
Oops.
So,
Oops.
Yeah. So there's a few ways you could take this. I'm not going to speculate on those, but we did have a local high school, within a few miles close to me today, and they're not saying when it's going to reopen.
Oh, come on, Amber. The Russians did all this. It's all the damn Russians' fault. We all know it. It has nothing. Sorry.
No, I mean, and of course, run on masks, run on, pop. But I mean, the reality of this is we, shout out to our longshoremen and the ILWU. They are going to suffer first, let alone just industry in general, if we don't have the disposable paper products that we have come so near and dearly to rely on in food manufacturing as well.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Let alone building things, maintenance when your boiler goes out, or, small widgets that keep your washing machine running.
Well, I even heard today that even the building industry, they couldn't get specific parts like hangers to put rails in homes and things with. We're so dependent on that in the construction industry in this country. I think this is really becoming an eye-opening experience for the public because the goods aren't there. I will say, and people say, well, everything seems fine now. I went to Walmart today. I didn't burst into flames, but I did go to Walmart today. And I saw all the the seeds and the gardening equipment and the barbecues and all that crap in there. And some would say, well, they seem to get their stuff. I was in that industry for a long time in grocery and drug retail, and we did that. They get that stuff like 3 months in advance of the season, and it's in pallets in their back room. That's how they do this crap, like Christmas goes up in September and stuff. So the coronavirus didn't really start getting legs until like 30 days ago. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it was about the end of January when it really kind of ticked off. That's when the Princess Cruise Line came down with it after leaving Hong Kong. So it all kind of clustered around then, and now we're just I believe we had our first case of somebody that has no known transmission to another person who's been exposed or travel. So that's the first case of those. And the CDC actually, I used to do FEMA training and all that fun stuff, and still get a lot of the alerts and things. And they put out new guidelines basically today that says, if you have a fever and if you've been in contact with somebody or traveled, or if you just have a fever,
Right.
My kids have been sick nonstop. It seems like the last 6 months.
Yeah. My wife was sick. She said she was feeling horrible. She's never been that sick. It was like 3 weeks until she's over it now. But yeah, that's the thing. But one of the stats that I read today were that didn't influenza, it killed like 1.5% of the people who contracted it. And right now what they're showing, per the number of people that have got the confirmed coronavirus, it's running about 2%. So, it's in with the parameters of what some of these devastating things are. It's just the potential for growth and exposure that I think the coronavirus is, it can be a real problem, and what it's doing to the economy as far as, the fear factor. I think you mentioned that fear about, these things last night, and we were having a discussion on some other topics. I think it was superdelegates. We don't want to fear the public. But realistically, right now, what are they doing? They're fearing us into, worrying about everything, right? And how should we be reacting to that?
Well, and I think I could get more concerned about people gathering for, say, a convention, or people are gathering for, say, a caucus.
Right.
So that to me is easy voter suppression. I kind of joked about it when this first came out, but it's clearly not a joking matter anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they're basically saying that given the efficacy of the transmission, that everyone should be prepared for it to gain a foothold throughout the world, and that containment may not be a realistic goal anymore, and that response efforts need to transition to different mitigation strategies, which include isolation at home, closing schools, and encouraging teleofficial, like telework, telecommuting, and not having, a cup at Starbucks, or not having a plastic fork, with your to-go meal. So that's kind of the reality of where we're headed. And it's a stark reality for the United States to work on, some of the things where I think an amazing leader like Bernie Sanders could really make a big difference, not only in bringing back manufacturing to the U.S. in a meaningful way with lots of good paying union jobs, but also being able to transition to a greener, better environment, such as all of the plastic single-use items could be made out of hemp, down in Grays Harbor where I was last weekend.
So, yeah,
cooperative, and
right.
that we need to rearrange how we've done all of these things. Even our pharmaceuticals, unless you're a patent or a biolab that's doing research, everything is being made in third world countries, and when it hits the fan, we're not going to be the first country just because we want to pay for it first.
Yeah.
For their own populations that are much higher than ours.
Sure. Yeah. I saw one of the items that they were concerned about because of the seasonality behind it are prom dresses. Most of these prom dresses are coming out of China for the prom, and the season's right before us, right now is when they're ordering them, and they can't fill those orders. So it even comes down to, that prom dresses. But like you say, a Sanders administration would bring into light sustainability, and that would help our economy in a positive way by using the hemp. Whereas, research like the CDC, I know that the current administration has not been kind with funding the CDC, and I can see with the Sanders administration that looking forward to issues like this, particularly when our climate is doing such drastic changes and we have mass die-offs of species, that crap's getting thrown up into the air. Not to mention the leaf blowers, which I think was, something that was invented by Satan. That would be, you know, the an Adam
My
Sandler
dear
moment.
friend calls those jetpacks for assholes.
Jetpacks for assholes. Yeah, I mean, you think about it.
They're horrible for the environment
Right,
too,
right. That's
and the person operating them.
yeah.
So.
And the only reason I mentioned that is once again at Wally World today. I looked at a whole wall of leaf blowers, and I'm going, "Are you kidding me?" You know, we've got coronavirus flying around, and we see these hazmat suits and people with these spray tanks going around, and it's like, oh, okay, so then the gardener's going to come by with the leaf blower and blow the shit all room again. Are you kidding me, man? And then I wonder, what do they do with those hazmat suits after they get done with them? Do they throw them into a landfill? I mean, really, it should be in a like needles and insulin, but are you really sure that's where they end up? You know, that sort of thing. So this is the irony of what's going on right now with the leaders that we have, leaders, that's what you call them, is kind of scary. And I don't follow the president when he speaks too much because I get a headache and a gas. Like, did he make some statement about the coronavirus? Is it like something like W did say, oh, everything's okay, go ahead and shop? Is that what the president did, or do you know?
I heard some side snippets about the election and about how it was directly related to our Democratic candidates, which I found even more ridiculous since he appointed, an evangelical to help control our newest term of the plague. Stephen Colbert had some great monologue points on it the other night, and
I bet.
one of them was, you burn the gloves and then you burn the person who touched the gloves, and hope that killed it. But
okay.
We really have not, and I've been saying this for years and years through a lot of my advocacy work, through pesticides and our broken down food system and unhealthy soil in the country, that we are so ill prepared for not only sewing a button or, becoming Betsy Ross's and making our own, 4th of July decor, but we don't have the ability to grow our own food or to sort everyday things. If we start having to wipe and wash, hand rags for, in lieu of toilet paper, shit's hitting the fan in more than one way.
Oh boy, you aren't kidding. I see. I've got to go back to the comments again. I want to say a shout out to Schultze and Jeffrey Denton's hashtag hemp, and that's what we need to do. Is we really need to wise up as a species. I told my wife today, I go, honey, humans are the dumbest species on the planet. Look at this wall of leaf blowers and look at this stack of bad food that's going to kill you. It's going to give you all kinds of cancer, whether it's in your brain or your butt, you're screwed. So, we've been pushing this forever. It's like, man, oh man, I think I'm going to start sitting here rooting for the asteroid to hit the planet and make it just quit, just finish it, finish me off, because getting up in the morning, looking in the mirror and saying we're effed, oh, we're just so effed, that's a hell of a way to start the day, and I got to get off that. But I just can't help it. I say the same thing when I walk into Walmart and see this kind of crap. But again, your points are there. With getting a new administration, a new deal is what we need to do, because if we go with business as usual, no matter if it's an establishment Democrat or a Republican, it's the party of the wealthy that's going to want to keep the wheels lubed with all this fossil fuel, and I think that's where we're going. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And we end up the most prolific financial nation on the planet that also has the worst health outcomes. That lovely food you were mentioning that gives us all those comorbidity situations that make us at risk. Just imagine our terrible health statistics in the United States with our revolving doors at the EPA and the FDA and the CDC. They've only been focusing on their own profits and their own personal financial gain of when they go to their next position and then their next board top. So they have not been caring for our public health or doing the right thing. And having that completely refreshed into a way that would maybe lessen the red tape and really be able to improve innovation. Otherwise we can look for cephalopods to take over the country, and we will sink back underground with the birds.
Well, I insist that I want to have the option of putting glyphosate on my Cheerios. I don't want it packaged in the box for me. I've got to do some of the work. Jesus. So, you know, that's where I'm at. We're getting a little long on time. What other topic did you want to hit on? And before we close out, I want you to tell the people who are watching a little bit about yourself and about Progressive Washington. But what topic did we not cover? Did you want to say something about Kim Wyman, or did we do that?
No, we did. I mean, unless anybody else has something fun to hang out about, it should be fine. You know, I just hope everybody can get their ballot in. That's our main goal this week. We're going to be phone banking. If you're looking to stay involved with the Progressive Front in Washington State and organizing in your community, you can do that by texting OTW 2020 to 83224.
Yeah,
So-
let's make sure I've got that in the rundown. I think we do. We do. I used your rundown that you kindly made for us, so that should be in there. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Amber. I mean, what makes you special, Amber?
I don't know about special, besides I am a mom who can sleep on 4 hours a night and get up and do a million things. My daytime, I work in the construction industry. By night, I do medical billing, and health and wellness consulting. I am a local PCO. I am my rep to the King County Council. I am the secretary of our Revolution Washington Bernie Kratz, and am organizing all across here. I grew up in Alaska, hence the trees behind me. Love my forests.
Nice.
I am a founding regional director of Moms Across America. I have been fighting many good battles against the corporate elite for many, many, many years, a couple decades now. So this is just one more arm of the octopus that I plan to wrap my tentacles around and make it so that our children have a future and our voices are heard, and trying to inspire everybody else to get up behind their TVs and their screens and their phones to hit the streets, get involved, make friends, be kind to your neighbors, plant a garden. I'll learn how to sew buttons again. You know, just kind of back to basics so that we can have a happy future going forward. But I like to research. I go deep down the rabbit hole on many topics. And I have a wide background that really gives me the ability to have a lot of working knowledge in a lot of different industries, all levels of government. I think I've worked for. So, you know, I've been on somebody's, you know, my life being a child of the late 70s, I've been on somebody's payroll since I was 14 years old. I will probably never see my Social Security. I've been buried in debt most of my life and working 70 hours a week.
Oh my gosh.
Jobs.
Wow. I think George W. Bush would say, that's uniquely American of you. You know, I look more at you as like I could use a transfusion. It sounds like you've got a ton of stuff going on. And again, I am so glad we have you part of Progressive Washington and the Uphill Media Network and Roar Media. We have a couple of shows coming online that I want to mention. We've already started Progressive Massachusetts, and I know that you and Suzanne are going to be working together on that one as well, which is going to be great because I want to kind of hide behind the curtain. But I'm really enjoying that. And you are talking to somebody about a Progressive Alaska. We have Progressive Utah coming online, along with Progressive Oregon. We're still trying to get somebody down in California to get on board. So we need that Progressive California so we can solidify that Western Wall. And I think Progressive Alaska would be definitely a good part of that, don't you?
Oh, yes. They need our help a ton up there. Alaska is very near and dear to my heart. I grew up there most of my life, going back and forth between Washington and Alaska. And they've got some craziness going on. They've got a horrible governor right now.
Oh, yeah.
They have a broken ferry system that has been unfunded and privatized over the years and continuing to try and be privatized, and they just keep cutting the funding and delaying maintenance to the point where towns are running out of places to dump their septic, and small villages had to have the state hire a catamaran service because they can't get food or mail in. It is really, really ridiculous right now. And that's just a tip of the iceberg for, people less than 1,000 miles away from here in Seattle. So it's, it's just really kind of showing the cracks in the seams. And I really want to get their voices heard. They're kind of honorary Washingtonians, but of a far greater independent nature. And they have some wild and crazy politics that I love near and dear to my heart. So if you're a fan of the Mike Gravells, you'd be a fan of Progressive Alaska when we get it online.
And we've got some friends that appear on the Natural Progressive. I think Jim Massa's up there in Alaska. Maybe he'd like to come on and talk and speak to some of the issues since he's there. And I'm just really excited to get them on board. So let's get that out there. Spread the word, everybody in the audience. We're looking for Progressive and your state. So if you feel like getting on there and you're not too camera shy, and it doesn't take much, because if I can get my ugly mug on here and babble, anybody can do better than this. So again, I want to thank Amber for coming on tonight. We won't be having a Progressive Washington on Sunday. We're going to have Progressive Oregon. Larry's back, and it promises to be a good show. We might jump on Saturday just to cover a little bit of the South Carolina election. But Super Tuesday, I plan on trying to get some of you on so we can have some discussion about Super Tuesday. Now, that's going to be a long show, and I've already told my wife to just forget it because I'm going to be stuck in the studio for a few hours. But I'd like to hear some commentary from anybody. So on Tuesday, I don't know if John and Laura are going to be on Tuesday. No, I take that back. They are going to be on Tuesday. I think they're going to be coming on about 5 o'clock our time, Pacific time. And again, we love John and Laura. We love everybody, at Uphill Media. They are the reason why we're here. And I just want to thank them for their inspiration and getting involved and doing what they're doing with KARK Radio down in Salem. Check that out if you haven't already. And I guess that's all I can breathe out of my skull tonight. So thank you again. And Amber, I'll give you the last word and we'll get out of here.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. Just want to let everybody know, get those ballots in. If you're interested in phone banking, check out at ORWABAC, ORWABC on any media. You will find us. Check the events. We will be phone banking up until the March 10th deadline in Washington State for Get Out the Vote. These are amazing phone calls with our supporters. We are also going to be pushing out a lot of support for whole Washington. And then as soon as this primary is over, we're going to be helping support our elected candidates that we have chosen as progressives in Washington State. And I can't wait to see what they do in Washington, D.C. and beyond and locally. So everybody look forward to getting involved, get those ballots in, make sure you check that box on the back, and have a lovely weekend.
Bye.